This is episode 50 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. Today, I'd like to welcome Sheila Ronning, CEO and founder of Women in the Boardroom. Leadership and networking expert and board strategist, Sheila Ronning is a trailblazer in working towards gender equality in the boardroom. In 2002, she founded Women in the Boardroom with a revolutionary vision to create an environment where women could assist other women in achieving their leadership and corporate board service goals. In less than 15 years, she has scaled Women in the Boardroom from concept to membership organization with global reach across multiple industries and influence in private and public boardrooms, including Fortune 100 companies. Sheila has built an impressive track record in connecting influential female executives with the people and tools they need to succeed in business and the boardroom. She uses her powerful network to help women achieve their goals of obtaining board membership, sharing more than 100 board openings with Women in the Boardroom VIPs. Sheila's accolades and accomplishments include spots on prestigious 40 under 40 memberships for Fortune's Most Powerful Women Insider Network, and with features in Washington Post, Forbes Women, and Wall Street Journal. A subject matter expert on board diversity and leadership, Sheila is also a sought-after speaker with characteristic candor, advises women to always show up, stand up, and speak up. Welcome, Sheila.
Well, hello, Katrina. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. So back us up a bit. So Women in the Boardroom sounds amazing, and I definitely want to dig into that. But how did you get started with Women in the Boardroom? Where did that concept come from?
Well, I was actually, so I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and I originally started, it's a little bit of a long story, but we've got time, right? So I originally started my business doing sales, marketing, and PR consulting in the Minneapolis area. And really, I found it was hard to get out there. My target market was small business owners. And, I didn't have the money or the time to join like the 10 different chambers of commerce in the area. Right. So I ended up creating my own networking event to draw in those small business owners. And it became a very popular, successful event, which we ended up having 500 to 700 people at 5 times a year. And my mentor said to me, "Oh my God, you're so good with getting people in the room. And I am really wanting to help women get into the corporate boardroom. And I'd love it if you would start an event that would help women do that." So it all started with having an annual event in Minneapolis. And after a few years, I added on Chicago. Wow. And we ended up, so that was in 2006, we added Chicago on. And by 2010, we were in 15 cities across the U.S. And then 6 years ago, I completely revamped it into a membership organization. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And we don't do those events anymore, thank goodness.
Well, the events are probably, I'm sure they're amazing, but I'm sure it's a lot of work during the year to ramp up for that.
Well, yeah. And, really, there's only so many topics that you can talk about with corporate boardrooms, right? And it gets stale. Plus, women really need that one-on-one time. And that's what we found now we're able to really make a difference. But, yeah, it's just, the economy really kind of wiped us out, too, because we had so many event sponsors. And, the financial crisis just kind of took that away.
Right. No, that makes sense. So as you made that shift to a membership model, I guess my sort of overarching question is, why aren't there, what is the challenge? Why is there not equality as far as boardroom makeup? Why isn't it 50-50?
Well, I truly believe that women just didn't know about it for so long. Okay. Right. And but you think about it, there really has, you think about the 40s, the 50s, men really were the ones who were the workforce, right? And so it really just kind of became, starting the Women in the Boardroom program 15 years ago, it was still a fairly new concept of women being in the corporate boardroom, and they really just didn't know what it was. So, so that's really, I think, why, because it takes time to shift things then. And of course, listen, I'm asked all the time, because I'm CEO and founder of Women in the Boardroom, I'm asked all the time, the media thinks I'm always going to give them some juicy little, line about men, but they call me up and they're like, well, do you think it's men that are keeping women out of the boardroom? And I'm like, listen, you know what? I'm sure there's some men that absolutely they're, trying to keep the woman down, right? But for the most part, they're not. Yeah. And it's really women themselves who are keeping themselves down.
Interesting. So for the women and men out there too that are listening, what is the benefit and reasons for wanting to get involved in a boardroom, to be on a board of something?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, there's many reasons why people should do that. And one, I mean, and of course I'm focused on for-profit. Like I always say, I have no desire to help women volunteer one more minute of their time.
That resonates for me. I feel that so much.
I mean, you don't need to pay me to help you volunteer, right? And I don't ever want women to step in their charitable work. That's not what this is about. I mean, and we wouldn't either, but I'm really wanting them to understand that it's okay to get paid for, helping a company, an organization get to the next level. And so it's that give back for sure, but it's also, I always say that our members are what I would call life learners, right? They have no desire to all of a sudden just retire and do full-time gardening.
Right.
They know how important it is to continue learning and growing as an individual. And being at a table with extremely smart people and learning from them, learning how they do business or how that company does business, and being able to, if they're still currently, employed, it's amazing to take that back to your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this might sound like a silly question, but to be on a board, is that person generally paid for that?
Oh, yeah. I kind of forgot that part too.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You get paid. Yes.
Interesting. And so the sort of the reason someone would get involved is one, to give their advice. Like that's what the company is looking for. Like if someone is very successful in marketing and an organization or company needs marketing advice, they would be looking for that type of person to be on their board. Is that kind of how it works, linear like that?
Yeah, if we would have had this conversation 5-7 years ago, boards, especially the big boards, mm-hmm. they were really always just looking for a financial expert, right? And that has been part of the problem as well, in regards to women, but now companies understand that they really need to have that good diversity of thought in the room, right? So that's not just gender, of course, that's ethnicity, mm-hmm. It is age, and it's, the most important part is to have diversity of skill set. I think any company, or any, well-run board has a matrix of what is the makeup of their board. And I do know the first column, or I guess my opinion is the first column should always be skill set. They should always have a variety of skill sets. So, the good news is that, like I said earlier, it used to be that they were just looking for financial experts, and now they're, in addition to financial experts, they're looking for people, with a skill set of, in technology, risk management, HR, / talent management, M&A, global experience, sales and marketing, and operations. So they really are kind of looking all over the board. But yes, and the board is not management. They oversee the strategy, but they're not actually hands-on. So when you had said, when a company needs somebody good in marketing, yes, but they're not actually, doing the marketing plan.
Sure. But they want sort of that advice, look at the marketing strategy that's presented, right? Is that?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if someone's going to be on a board, like what sort of hourly commitment should they expect? Like how can they pre-qualify to know if they're, ready or not ready?
Well, right. I mean, okay, so those are a couple of different questions.
Okay.
First of all, the amount of time to put in, all of that should definitely, you need to figure that out in your board interview in those first initial conversations, because it will vary. Some boards might meet 4 times a year. Some might meet 12 times a year. There might be, committees that you need to be on. You might need to chair a committee. So it is going to really depend on the needs of the company. But on average, the National Association of Corporate Directors puts out a report and says that on average, and this is really for, like the Fortune 500 boards,
Sure.
On average, it could be 250 to 300 hours a year.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, that would include, reading your board report before the board meeting, which, of course, that's your prep work.
I'm sure that's pretty hefty.
Yes, exactly. And,
not light reading.
Yep, it's the actual board meeting. It could be the dinner the night before the board meeting. It could be the committee work, any kind of different, conference calls throughout the year.
Okay.
The only thing is that if the company goes into crisis mode that you're serving on the board, it could be 3 times that. But then if you're talking about a smaller company, privately held or an advisory board position, because, we don't want to forget that there's all these other different types of paid board seats out there,
right.
That it could be significantly less, but it could be significantly more. So you really do need to know what that expectation is before you say yes.
Right. Okay, so as you shifted from sort of the in-person local event model to a membership model, tell us a bit about that entrepreneurial journey. Like, was that an easy shift? Was it cumbersome? And
was it easy? Oh yeah, just snap my fingers. Oh my goodness. No, it was painful. It was a do or die situation.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I mean, listen, I moved from Minnesota to New York City and didn't have my eye on the ball, right?
Sure.
Was really involved in this personal relationship, and that was a good use of time. Did you catch the sarcasm?
Right.
So I didn't have my eye on the ball. Everything was going great. And I thought, oh my gosh, the financial crisis didn't affect us at all. And it didn't in 2008, right? It didn't in 2009, but it sure hit us in 10 and 11 and 12. Sure. And I was like, okay, oh wow, I just moved from, reasonably priced Minnesota to New York. And I mean, it was crazy. All these different things were just shifting. And I just was like, okay, what am I going to do? We were having these huge events at big, expensive hotels. And, our sponsorships were, dried up because of the financial crisis. Of course, they were sponsors for the first couple of years, but they didn't tell us if their marketing budget was on freeze after that. So, I just had to really think, how can I take this to the next level? And so I changed it, for many reasons. One, certainly because of the financial crisis, but 2, I'd also been hearing from, those senior level executive women attending our events who said, great event, learning lots, but I need more help than this. And I couldn't think of a way to help them at that point. So when the event, and plus it was just, we've been doing the event for 9 years. And really there is only so many topics for the corporate boardroom. And I knew they really did need that one-on-one help. So that's when I created the membership model. And, it's like the first year, I don't think I uncrossed my fingers or stopped praying.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So there you have it.
yeah, no, and I think that's amazing. And so many of us as entrepreneurs want to be at our end goal, but we're not always, we don't always know what bump in the road is coming. And
Yeah.
I mean, you made a huge business model shift successfully, and I think that's amazing to share. Tell us a little bit about how that's different as far as marketing and sales. Like, how is it different to market and sell the sponsorships to in-person events versus how is it different to market and sell your membership program?
Yeah. Okay. You know what? One thought popped up into my head that I just want to make sure I share with your listeners. And that is, you're right. You don't know when a bump's going to come in the road.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have learned, if things are going really well, like too smooth, you better watch out. Put your
Hold
seatbelt on.
on.
Because you're not there. I mean, we can, as entrepreneurs, we should always be looking for, where should I turn this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where should I shift it? And really be figuring out what your strengths are and what they are not.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
But okay, so the difference in marketing and sales. Well, the world has changed so much too in the last 6 years in technology, right? So, I mean, oh my gosh, I remember when I started my very first event 20 years ago, and we didn't even have email, I had to literally fax people flyers for my event.
Oh my goodness.
And that was even before like broadcast faxing systems. Well, I was so damn broke. Oh, sorry. I'd like to swear. I hope that's okay.
It's just fine.
I would literally manually fax out these flyers one by one. And I was so broke, I just had nothing else to do on the weekend and in the evening. So
right.
That is how I would market that event. And then, eventually it shifted over to this WinFax, right? It was this faxing broadcast system that I literally had to run through my phone line, and I had to be on the phone all day long. So I would run those faxes from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. And it was just crazy to think about that. But then,
right.
Then it shifted into email. And so, to come back currently, because I know I'm really going far back. I mean, we just didn't have the social media 6 years ago, even that we have today. So it's completely different. It is always about your brand and your reputation and who you are. And, if there's anything I've learned in the last, especially the last 6 years, was you got to be you, right? You have to be authentic.
That's so valuable.
You take everything that I was going through, and on top of that, I moved from the Midwest to New York City.
That's a giant leap.
And, even more giant than you think, because I moved from Minneapolis to Harlem. So you don't even know how different the worlds are, but actually how similar. And I mean, New York is so amazing for the fact that anyone is welcome here. But you're intimidated, right? When you move from the Midwest to New York, and I didn't know, oh my gosh, are people going to like me? Are they going to there's a lot of pressure because, you got to be on your A game here. Yeah. And if you're not, I was even leery about bringing my annual event here. I wanted to perfect it. I said, you know what? I know that if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So I need to have my event down. So it was one of the last cities we added, but yeah, I mean, so the whole marketing thing, it's your brand. It's, I always said there, my word is my word. That's all I have.
Right.
And so it was quite a learning lesson moving here. I would not trade that time for anything.
Right.
It has just made me stronger, better, more authentic. And, people are drawn to that. They know when you're real.
Mm-hmm. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. As we wrap up, my last question is this. So you as an insider working with women and boards for these companies, like what is on your radar right now that you think we'll all be talking about in another year or two?
Well, I think, and I hope, let's just say that.
Fingers crossed again.
Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed that I'll start an organization called Men in the Boardroom.
Ooh, love it.
Yeah, which means, by the way, there will be more women in the boardroom than men.
Isn't that interesting? Because it's not like, I totally know what you're saying about, sometimes the press wants, kind of a dig on men, but this isn't a men thing. Like it's an
Right.
equality thing. And, there are, just what you said, there are a lot of men who they want women in the boardroom too. They're
Right.
not, I think that's a really great point to call out.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. And it's just, as women, we're just afraid of the unknown. We want to know everything before we go.
Sure. Before it unfolds. Someone recently told me there's not a beginning and an end, it's all unfolding. And I think that is a
Yeah, I
beautiful,
love that.
sort of thing to keep in mind, because so often we look at things in that binary lens, like beginning, end, or success, failure. And just what you had, like when you switched business models, it wasn't success or failure, it was unfolding to something new.
Right.
I think that's so valuable to keep in mind.
Yeah, love that.
Good. All right. Well, Sheila, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.